Women are melting down over men going their own way. So the ladies are having tantrums. They are going through a massive meltdown right now, all over the rascals going their own way. Yeah, they're pissed off, guys. They are upset that these men are either walking away, going overseas, finding Latinas and Filipinas to spend their time with, or choosing to avoid relationships in Western society and just focusing on playing video games, sleeping, farting, and living their best lives. Watch the video to fully understand how this is going to impact women going into the future. And now let's just go ahead and jump into the very first video.
No. But y'all don't do that. Y'all don't do that because our money and education. Stop talking over me.
But would you say that man is family?
Let me ask you a question, Edgar. Why are the passport bros not going to Sweden, Switzerland, Germany? Why are they going to Colombia, the Philippines, Malaysia, African countries? Why are they going there and not to Europe?
Because that's the choice that they choose.
No,
not every man.
Wrong,
that is
wrong answer.
It can't be the wrong answer because you can't tell everybody where they're
modeled
going.
like the West. They're modeled like us, and they're not going to stand for their bullshit. So they go to these very, very poor countries where your $50,000 means the world in a third world country. And they bring them back here, and the women are subservient, and they do everything the man wants. But let me kid you not, when the women get a little education and an employment and learn the language, they might not frickin' stay. They use the men, the American men, the schmucks, as an outlet to get here.
You see, guys, this is how much they hate us. This is how much they hate us, that they would say these things. Now, don't get me wrong. There are men who go overseas and they get taken advantage of by women overseas in these countries, all right? You can get taken advantage of by a woman in the United States. You can get taken advantage of by a woman in Colombia, the Philippines, wherever. But the chances of finding a woman who is fit, feminine, friendly, and who wants to build a relationship with you is much better in another country. Women in Western society, they are deeply within their masculine energy. They don't actually want you. They don't want you. They don't like you. They'll tell you that they don't need you. But what they do want is your money. Listen to what she said. You're a little $50,000. The average woman does not make $50,000 in the United States. The average woman makes somewhere between $36,000 and $40,000 in the US. Okay? $50,000 is what the average man makes, not what the average woman makes. And they're like, you and your little $50,000. Guys, so many women are living in poverty right now. So many Gen X women, so many baby boomer women are living in extreme poverty, are just above extreme poverty. And these are some of these are the same people that are posting videos online and saying that life is wonderful and acting like they're on top of the world, when if they can't find a man to buy them a meal that evening, if they can't find a simp to take them out to eat, they don't eat for that evening. And when they post their meals online, because they were taught that cooking and cleaning are patriarchal, they cannot cook and they cannot clean for themselves, so they're eating cheese and crackers. And again, there's some of you who are like, oh, cheese and crackers are awesome. Yeah, listen, if you want to spend the rest of your life just eating cheese and crackers, that's fine. I really don't care. But I could not spend the rest of my life eating just cheese and crackers. Like, that's a bum right there. I'm just being real. That's a bum. If you want to spend the rest of your life eating cheese and crackers, guys, I would lose my damn mind if I had to spend the rest of my life just like if you were told, like, this is it for you. Cheese and crackers and some grapes. Okay? That's a bum. That's a bum. And and again, I understand when times are hard and that's all that you have, you do the best with that. But if that's all, that's your base, that's basically the rest of your life. No, like that's there's more to life. There's more to life. And that's the life that a lot of women are living right now. They cannot cook, they cannot clean. All right? So wherever they live, their homes are often filthy, clothes everywhere, unwashed, and they have no food because they cannot cook their food. And mentally, they've been conditioned that Cooking is a patriarchal thing. If that food is not cooked for you, then you are not going to then you are not going to eat it. All right, unless it's cooked for you by someone else, because cooking is patriarchal. Guys, this is how stupid it is. All right, taking care of yourself, having the skill sets to take care of yourself is patriarchal. It's okay for a man to cook for you. It's okay for a man to clean for you. It's okay for someone else to cook for you and clean for you, but you better not cook for, you sure as hell better not be cooking for a man, and you should not be cooking for yourself. That's something that is supposed to be provided to you. Okay? Food, you are entitled to food and shelter. Those are things that you are entitled to. Food, shelter, okay, utilities, a bit of pocket money. Those things are supposed to be provided to you, and then we could talk about the rest, okay? And that's what the state is for, and that's what men are for. They're supposed to provide to you and give you everything that you need, and you're supposed to have a great experience here on earth. Every woman should feel like a goddess and know she was a goddess during her time here on earth. Guys, do you hear the level of insanity? Do you hear the level of delusion? These women don't like us. They don't like us. They don't want us. They only want our attention, our time, and our money. They only view us as ATMs. And if we try to call them out on it, they'll just use sign language, shame, insults, guilt, gaslighting, nagging, because they need to be right. And it's the same tactics that the Simps are using as well. And like I said, the Simps are just operating as agents of the state as well. Their goal, just like women in Western society, is to reallocate wealth and resources from men to the state. Okay? These people tear down men, they tear down masculinity, they tear down self-development. They want you just capable enough to keep society running, but not smart enough or dedicated enough or willing to realize just how hard you're being screwed. All right? They don't want you to utilize critical thinking, because if you start using critical thinking, you'll realize that how much you're being ripped off and how much you're being taken advantage of by the people around you, including members of your family. You have to understand that these people, your family members, your mom, your father, especially members of people, that boomer generation, these people don't mean you any good. These people lived for free, many of them, during the best of times, and everything was handed to them. Their parents gave them money. Their parents gave them shelter. Society gave them jobs just for existing. Okay? Streets were literally paved with gold, and they blew it all. They blew it all. They threw it away. They threw it all away. They sold out, guys. They stole our futures from us when we were in diapers. And there's some of you are like, they stole our futures from us when we were in diapers, and we're gonna steal it back when they're in diapers. I'm sorry, kids. Listen to old Uncle Angry. I'm sorry, children. I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that. When they're in diapers and you think you're going to steal it back from them, the only thing you're going to find are a bunch of IOUs. They have nothing of value. All right? You're saying, well, what about their houses? Guys, the boomers are corrupt. All they do is refinance constantly on these properties, and then they could create an artificial inflation that way as well. They've been deliberately increasing the cost of properties for decades by just refinancing indefinitely, and figuring that it doesn't matter, someone else will just have to pay for it. And then they take the money to go on Carnival cruise adventures, to party and have a good time. Because their goal is that they're going to enjoy every bit of their lives, every shred of it, until they are gone. So when they finally leave this earth, they could care less about anyone else. This is the mindset of the boomers. It's all about me, 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 me. Another thing about the boomers, many of them are afraid to pass away. They are scared of their own mortality. Because guys, the way that they lived ultimately defines them. They didn't know how to live, so trust me, they're not going to know how to leave this world. All right? They are scared to meet their maker. They gave us tortured lives. All right? They tortured their children. Our first bullies were our parents. We could never treat our parents the way that our parents treated us. We could never treat our children the way that our parents treated us. We would be in prison. Okay? And the same boomers who did these things to us would then act like we were villains. And we could say, listen, but hey, you did 10 times worse to me. And they'd say, you're lying. It's not true. Okay. These are bad apples, just like Gen Zers are bad muffins. These are bad apples. This is why modern women are like this, because they were raised by these narcissistic individuals and they inherited that narcissism.
Let me ask you a question.
Because why can't you find what you're looking for here if you're a good man, that is, right? If you're a good man.
Okay, I'll take part of what you said to reason why. Because you said that they take your little $50,000. See, maybe our
because here it doesn't mean
hold
shit.
on, hold on. But
real.
Exactly. See, it doesn't mean shit
here.
But if you listen, it doesn't mean shit to the women who not accepting and don't see.
Not when I make over six figures.
Hold on, wait, hold on. But it doesn't make sense to a woman.
Of course it does.
In that fact, when a man is working hard and putting in blood, sweat, and tears just to get his $50,000, see, that woman
get a better job, do better.
See, but that don't appreciate it. You see how that? You see how that is?
I did.
It's That's the reason why passport bros do what they do, because simply what you said, because they feel unappreciated for the hard work that they do.
And make more money.
And on top of that,
why is
from those
making
other
more
countries
money important?
Have some emotional intelligence and make more money.
But why?
Edgar, you're trying to reason with a liberal. It's not going to work.
But why making more money is more important? Why is that more important?
What do you think 50,000 is going to buy in America with this?
Do you guys see how they operate? They only want their bag. They only want you for your money, your attention, your time, and money. This guy said, one man in America has to put in blood, sweat, and tears to make $50,000. And these women will turn around and say these things. You have to remember that a lot of these women are unholy fools. A lot of these women have government jobs, okay? They have government jobs, paper pusher jobs, administrator jobs. Guys, these jobs are all going to be wiped out. HR jobs, these jobs are all going to be wiped out. All wiped out by AI. Okay? Let's make this very clear. For example, if Trump gets reelected, a lot of those government jobs he's going to wipe out. They're going to go. They're going to go on a firing spree. A firing spree. Many of the new jobs that have been created in Biden's administration have been government jobs, and most of those jobs are occupied by who? Women. So, guys, when the state starts firing, who's going to take the brunt of that? Women. The jobs that women are doing primarily in private industry, those are administrative jobs. Those are jobs like middle managers. Those are administrative jobs in HR. What do you think is going to happen, guys, when you go to the hospital and this person comes around with a tablet and they collect your insurance information and all that other stuff when you're in the emergency room? Who's primarily doing those jobs? Women. You don't realize that they want to get rid of those jobs as quickly as possible? Guys, you know what's going to end up happening, right? As AI begins stepping in, those jobs are going to be replaced. And you're going to have, instead of having those people do them, you're going to have nurses. You're going to have nurses, or you're going to have self-check-in. They're going to hand you a tablet. The nurse is going to come by and hand you a tablet. And she'll say to you, if you need any help, you can just let me know. Just confirm everything on there, and I'll be right back to grab that from you. And that's it. All those jobs gone. And these people think that, well, if you take my job away, I'm going to go and burn society down. It doesn't work like that, son. It doesn't work like that, sis. What's going to happen is that there will be men with firearms, agents of the state, that will be right there to deal with you. It's not going to go as easy as these people think it is. A lot of these people think like they're going to threaten us. They're going to threaten the state and tell the state that if the state doesn't do what they want, guys, the state is only working in its own favor, and the state will allow just enough to happen to seize power. But after that, the state has no problem sending out its enforcers to do its bidding. These people don't comprehend. They don't understand what it's like to live under tyranny, what it's like to live under socialism. So many of these women that are shaming men for only making $50,000 a year, when the average woman doesn't even make $40,000 a year. The average woman does not make $40K a year, but they don't look at it that way because they live off the simp economy. Many of these women are on OnlyFools and LonelyFans as well. A lot of women that you would never even think of, you would never even expect it. They're on OnlyFools. They're on OnlyFans. They're making money off these platforms. They're making money off Instagram. And then they're attacking men and shaming men because men don't have that kind of money. Because they're living off the simp economy. Look at what's happened in China. The simp economy in China has collapsed. There was a video I showed you guys where, Valentine's Day rolled around and women are not getting gifts like that anymore. A lot of men are not showering these women with presents or praise anymore. And there was this one video where this guy gave a woman a box of dates for Valentine's Day and she threw it in the trash. And another woman who was filming, she basically goes around on Valentine's Day checking the trash of all the gifts that women throw away from these simps. And she basically started shaming the guy because he gave the woman a box of dates. And she began shaming him, saying that he doesn't deserve to have a girlfriend. But she said that she was going to keep the dates and eat the dates herself. Like, these women who are desperate for survival are still shaming men when they're eating garbage out of the trash. Guys, I'm telling y'all, guys, 10 years ago, it wasn't 10, actually, it was actually more than 10 years ago, because I've been on YouTube 10 years. It was over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago, guys, I experienced homelessness over 10 years ago. And it was hell. It was hell. I was working on my first postgraduate degree. I ran out of money. And I ended up homeless. And I was eating garbage off the side of the road with the other homeless people while going to college, while going to uni. And I suffered so much, and I wanted to drop out. I wanted to drop out. And at one point, I just wanted to give up. And there was a guy, and he told me, listen, don't give up. Don't give up. And a crackhead came. A crackhead came by. A crackhead came by. And he told me, listen, man. He's like, listen, we got something over there for you. We got some crack over. I'm not making this story up. I was at my lowest, and I was sitting on the ground. I was sitting on the ground in the dirt. And oh God. And a crackhead came by and he told me, we got something for you. My laptop had just gotten stolen. I was working on my thesis. It's basically a book. It got stolen, and I was like, well, how am I gonna? I can't even do this anymore. I'm screwed. And the crackhead came by, and he's like, listen, this is the same damn crackhead, him and his friends, who stole my laptop. And he came by and he was like, listen, man, we got something for you. Come over here and smoke some crack with us. And I just basically thought about it. I was like, I'm screwed. My life is now over. Look at me. No one gives a shit about me. My life is a complete mess, and the crackhead is offering me some crack. And there was a guy that I knew, was a good guy. And he goes, listen, don't listen to him. I was like, man, my life is done. My laptop's stolen. There's no way that I can do this. He's like, go to the library. I was like, bro, you can only use those computers at the library for a couple of hours. You can't even use them very long. He's like, dude, go to the library, use it, do what you can do. All right. And then go to your university and use a computer at your university. And he basically told me, like, this is how it is for men. And I was sitting in the dirt, and he said, stand. He's like, listen, stand up. I'm like, no. He's like, stand up. Stand up. All right. And he said, listen, you can do this. You can do this. This is what men do. And in the end, I ended up fighting and working on my thesis and getting my thesis done. It took me many months. I was homeless for 8 months, and I worked on my thesis for that entire time. And then I had to go and do a defense. And while homeless, I had to find money to go and buy clothing. So buy shirt and guys, I was homeless. I had nothing. I had literally nothing. And I had to still find money with the small, tiny amounts of money that I had to go, after suffering, to write that thesis and submit that thesis. I had to find money to go. I had to find money to go and do all of this, and do my defense, and then I had to do the defense in front of the committee. Basically, it's just like when you defend a dissertation. It's basically a book. I wrote a book, and it was hell. And then on top of that, I had to go to the graduation. You know, it was horrible, and I didn't want to go, but my department's heads were like basically it was nightmare. Nobody knew I was homeless, and there were some days when I was dirty and I smelled, and I still had to go to class. And of course, there had to be people had to have known I stunk, I smelled. They knew I was going through stuff when I lost my car, but no one really asked questions, and I survived that. I'll tell you guys right now, most women would not survive that. Most women would never survive what I went through. They don't. When I was homeless, they were constantly finding the bodies of deceased women on their bridges, on their passes, all over the place, constantly. It was a normal thing. And they would be this, and when they found them, in many cases, they would be disrobed. And this is how, and guys, the streets, for a woman on the streets, it's a living hell. It's a living hell. Men suffer on the streets, but women do not understand just how dangerous the streets are. Women are attracted to evil men. They're attracted to evil things. I'm not saying women are evil, but they are attracted to evil. They're attracted to toxicity. They're attracted to these things because it makes them feel excited. And it does tell us things about their personalities, but they don't understand that there are consequences. And because they've always been bailed out of every bad decision that they've made, they believe that they'll be bailed out of these decisions as well. That does not work. It does not work like that. And when they find themselves in these horrible situations and in these horrible places, they want a man to come and rescue them immediately. And that's just not how life works. Women put themselves in this situation. Women put themselves in these boxes. Women put themselves in this reality. And when they end up having to face the consequences for those decisions, they don't know what to do, and they start to break down into tears. And as men, we have to stop allowing their tears to manipulate us. You've got the simps right now who are trying to shame us. Who are trying to shame us because we're walking away. We're not allowing others to take advantage of us and use us for our value. You have to understand, they're called simps for a reason. These men are called simps for a reason. For example, guys, simps are furious over the passport kings. They're furious at men going their own way. They're furious that men are walking away. Like, look at this comment from this guy. His name is D. This was on my video. This is how society collapses. In this video, you have a guy named I think it was this wasn't Judge Joe Brown. I forget the name of this judge, but basically he's one of the TV judges, and his wife cheated on him. I don't know, she's probably cheating on him, but his wife is divorcing him. And basically we talked about this, and where do you have a simp pops in and he goes, "Sorry, I'm not taking advice from a guy who's telling me to be alone while playing video games. Lol. Come on, man. You've got one large brush here. Ton of nice women out there." So they're furious that men are going overseas, because we talk about the passport kings going overseas to find happiness overseas. We talk about these men who are choosing to do better for themselves, walking away from toxic relationships and toxic environments, or some men who choose to go their own way and completely opt out of relationships and society, instead focus on themselves. And these people are furious because, guys, the simps are agents of the state. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to be miserable and constantly producing for the state, and then they get rewarded for it. You have to understand that simps hate you. They hate you. A simp hates you. They absolutely do. They hate men. They hate masculinity. They hate what we represent. Guys, this is how they are. This is their means of survival. This is the reason why they can do these things and sleep well at night. Okay? Because these people want to destroy you. It's a sad society. It's a sad reality, but you have to be aware of it.
But
And if
he works hard for it. But how would you feel if somebody said that your little $50,000
I make
don't give
double
that much?
that, so
But
it's irrelevant.
not you though. Not you. What about a
I
woman that
was
does?
making
What about?
50,000,
But
and I
what about a
But how
corrected
woman
much
my
that
was the
mistake
does
and
woman
did
make
from the
better.
other
$50,000?
country making? But how much was
But
the woman from the
does
other country
but
making?
what Doug? What about a woman who makes $50,000 and that man said, "I'm not gonna be with you because your little
Oh,
$50,000
no, no,
don't
no,
mean
no,
shit"?
no. But
How would
y'all
you
don't
view
do
him?
that. Y'all
How would
don't
you?
do that
But
because our
how would
money
you
and
see
education.
that man?
Stop
How would you
talking
view that
over
man?
me.
But would you say
Shut
that that
up.
man is? Would you say that man is horrible? Would you say that man is like he don't
Stop
accept a
talking
woman
over me. I'm
for what?
dropping you. That's it. I'm dropping you.
Guys. So forever single 44. Forever single 44. So that's her name, guys. That guys, they're so angry. They are so angry that men are walking away, that they're lashing out. Oh, we don't need you, but how dare you go overseas and find someone overseas? How dare you go overseas and meet someone overseas? Okay? This woman's name, the one that you saw on the stream, her name is actually Chassing 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 my 44, Chasing Amy 44, and she has a bunch of videos up. Now I want you guys to think about something very carefully. I really wonder what she does for a living. Because a lot of these women, they're basically like, "Oh, I'm a high value woman, I'm able to make all of this money." And these women are making money on Instagram and OnlyFools, right? So this exact woman that was arguing with this man, I wonder what she does for a living. This is the woman. This is her. This is her Insta, her TikTok, or one of them. And let's just have a look at how she's dressed in these pictures. Just have a look on here, tatted up and like this. I would take a gander that this woman is absolutely not working as a doctor or a nurse or or a lawyer or an engineer. Honestly, I can't even say this woman is working even in HR and is at the top of her game. Yeah, you know, I just guys, honestly, I'm just beating around the bush, but a lot of these ladies, a lot of these ladies, they are on OnlyFools. They're on OnlyFools. They're on LonelyFans. Okay, they are on OnlyFools and they're on OnlyFools and they're on LonelyFans, and that's how they're making their money. That's how they're doing things, and they basically live off the simp economy. They live off the simp economy, and they think that because they're able to make money, from the simp economy, you know, they can keep this going. Forever single 44. Forever single. She's forever single. Guys, and I think she's like 44, 46 years old now. And this is the reality. This is the life that they're living. This is the life that they're living. And they think that they think they're going to shame men out of society. They think, they think they're going to attack men until men basically have to flee. And then when men walk away, when men say they've had enough and leave and go overseas, they go absolutely insane and ballistic because they know that these men are their backup. Okay? These men are their backup. These are the men that they were banking on to save them during hard times. These are the men that they're banking on to rescue them during hard times. The same men that they absolutely hate, that they scream at, that they holler about, that they shame, are the men that they know that they cannot live without. That's why they're furious that these men are going overseas. That's why they don't want these men to be happy. They view these men as property because they know that men are used as property, as slaves for the state. We are basically slaves without chains. Just because we can leave does not mean that they cannot catch us, does not mean that they can not bring us back. If you listen to what Kamala Harris is saying, she's saying that if she's elected president, she's going to push for a 28% tax on capital gains. This basically means that if you have stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, whatever you own, whenever you convert that over to cash, you will automatically owe the state 30% of whatever you gain. So you're not able to write off your losses, but they will take a part of it, whatever you make, whatever you gain. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, guys. It's sick. It's sick. Okay? She's also saying they're going to put price controls in place, and price controls on starting with food. That's what they do in socialist countries. Okay? They put price controls. And what ended up happening in Venezuela when they did that? Companies stopped selling products in that country, and it resulted in hyperinflation. The US dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world, guys. So you can see why women are melting down as men are going their own way, because they basically know that their safety net is walking out the door. Men walking away, their safety net is withdrawing from society. Men walking away who are going overseas to meet ladies and start families overseas. That's their safety net. All right, they're basically going overseas and taking that money and giving it to women overseas. So they're furious, and they're melting down over it. Because the people that they hate, they also know they can't survive without them, even though they'll scream and shout from the rooftops that they don't need them, they don't want them. But at the same time, they also don't want them to leave. Guys, what this is it is a form of narcissistic abuse. Okay? What they are doing to us is a form of narcissistic abuse. It is 100%. 100% narcissistic abuse. And they do it because they can get away with it, because no one calls them out on it. No one stops them. No one corrects them. Because society is either afraid of them, or all the simps are just trying to be physically intimate with them. Do not forget that when you're dealing with the suffragettes, and again, I'm not attacking feminism. I'm not speaking poorly of feminism. I talk about the individuals that made the choice. When you think about the suffragettes were regarded as terrorists within their era, and they were tossed into prison. They were tossed into prison. And the Sims ultimately said, oh, we can't watch them suffer anymore. Fine, we'll cave and give them the right to vote. Men had the right to vote because they had to serve in the military, because they were susceptible to the draft. That's the reason why the men had the right to vote, because they had responsibilities in society. Okay? Women were basically given the right without any responsibility. Guys, I've said this many years ago, that even if the label feminism does go away, the legacy will live on. And we would come to the day, we would basically come to the time where women would say, feminism got us everything that we wanted, now let's fight it together. Or really what they're saying is, feminism got us everything that we wanted, now let's fight for one another. Absolute and total BS. All right? So basically, we're basically now they're fighting for humanism. Another ism. And of course, again, even if feminism goes away, the legacy will live on. Feminism existed in the Roman Empire. What many of you don't know is that women held considerable positions in the Roman Empire, and they worked to change the laws in the Roman Empire to give women significantly more leverage than men. And so women got special privileges while men got special punishments. And eventually the entirety of the Roman Empire was focused on subsidizing the living of women and using slave labor to make up for the losses of men in society, because men walked away entirely. Men walked away, or they went their own way. So they either left the Roman Empire and they went somewhere else, or they completely left, or they just basically dropped out of society, went their own way, stopped getting married, stopped engaging in relationships, and stayed inside. and they only did just enough to survive and no more. And they refused to protect the empire. They refused to serve it. They refused to protect the country that they felt had betrayed them. If a man does not have love for country or for family, he will fight for neither. That's what happened. And eventually, the barbarians came along, realized that the emperor had no clothes, and they pillaged the empire. And women in the empire, they did all of these things, and they took control of the empire in the name of love and kindness. They preached love and kindness, even though they would not allow any tolerance of any other ideas. So that's another thing, was thought policing. They began destroying books and tearing and having people arrested for thinking things that went outside of the normal ideology. Basically, if you explore these radical topics, you're a misogynist and you're a danger to women in society. This is what happened. So men eventually walked away and they gave up. And they gave up, and society fell, and so the Roman Empire fell, and we were plunged into 1,000 years of darkness. We were living in caves, eating squirrel meat, and during that era, women lost all of their rights. Women had no rights at all during the Dark Ages. Most people could no longer read, could no longer write, and we're in constant states of ignorance for 1,000 years. The church, of course, still had access to technology. They still had they had reading, they had math, they had science, they had chemistry. So they thought, if you wanted to have these skill sets, you had to basically be a disciple of the church. And then the church used this to control humanity for the next 1,000 years, basically turning people into their slaves. This is the history of humanity. And this was all brought to us by women's empowerment. Yeah. And this is the reality that women are fighting for in Western society again. This is what they want to bring. And they have their simps that are there lined up fighting to make that a reality.
New subgroup of guys that I'm just learning about called passport bros. Like, I heard about the passport bros.
Yeah.
And I guess it's men who they leave like America and go like to foreign countries and stuff and find women who are more suitable mates than black women, right?
I mean, interracial dating is not a cure for low self-esteem.
So
you know what I'm saying?
Which part is low self-esteem?
Just that's a cop out by saying black women ain't good enough for you, so I date a white woman. You feel me? That's just low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And dudes be claiming that they nerds, but they fail to leave out that they dirty and broke. Like the passport bros that's like leftover men. You know what I'm saying? They you know what I'm saying? Like, cause the real
dirty and broke. Look at Pookie here. Look at Pookie attacking men and condemning men for walking away, calling them dirty and broke. Dusties, calling them dirty and broke. Okay? Virtue signaling as hard as he can. Guys, these are hardcore simps. These are hardcore simps. Look at old King Pookie right here. Look at old King Pookie trying to virtue signal. Unbelievable.
real players done got they don't pick from the good women here, and then they just like,
oh, we gotta look. This is a clip right here, like this is a sound clip. So
they just gotta go somewhere.
What is it? Passport bros are leftover men.
Yeah,
because all the players
done picked from the good women. You know what I'm saying?
Y'all see that? They're calling the passport kings leftover men. Leftover men, but these men are going to other countries and absolutely killing it. Women in Western society and their simps refuse to accept that these men are rejecting them. All right? This is why they have the term pick me, because these are women who want to be picked. If a woman is not being picked by a man, all right, then she is a leftover woman. So what we actually have is an entire society of leftover women who are being left behind. Guys, whenever you have a time of crisis, for example, a war breaks out, there's a national disaster, The men are barred from leaving the country. The women can leave, but the men 18 years and older are barred from leaving. Even elderly men are barred from leaving. Why? Because a country without its men is not a country. A country without its men is a wasteland. So if the country no longer has access to those men, the country will then cease to exist. Guys, it will be taken over. It will be taken over by another country. So the state forcibly, hear me when I say this, the state forcibly makes those men stay in that country, and they have to fight for the country and they rebuild the country. And only then, and this process can take decades and cost many lives, can they even then consider ever leaving and going somewhere else. Because guys, without the men, you have nothing. Without the men, that's the end of it. That's the absolute end of it. And this reality has been created by women. Women have made this reality possible through their actions, through their behaviors. They do not respect, guys. They don't understand that men are not picking them. What they are offering, men don't want. And it's not to say that there are no good men, there are no good women in Western society. But for every one good woman, there are 20 good men chasing her. So men are tired. Men are done with this. Men are saying, if we want a relationship, we'll go overseas. Or some guys are like, no, I'm good. I don't want to have to be bothered with raising a family or children. It's too expensive. See, guys, check this out. When women say they don't want a man, they don't want children, they're happy by themselves, they get praised for it. When men say that they don't want to get married, they don't want children, they're happy by themselves, they get shamed for it. And then immediately we're going to be gaslit. This is how they treat us, guys. This is what they think of us. If you are a smart man, you are walking away or outright running away. You're running away from this thing, because it is absolutely terrible. What men are going through is absolutely terrible. It's absolutely horrible, and no man should tolerate it. No man should put up with it. God did not put us here. And I will repeat this once again. God did not put us here to be anyone's toy, to subsidize anyone's living. That is not our purpose. That is not what he wants from us. That is not why he put us here. He put us here to survive. He put us here to thrive. He did not put us here to be used by others. He did not put us here to be taken advantage of by women. Jesus loves us. He loves us so much, and he wants the best for us. And he did not put us here to be used by women. This is the reason why I say grow close. God, gosh, guys, grow closer to God. Draw closer to him, and he will draw closer to you. And then many times in our lives, for us to draw closer to him, we have to leave behind the people and the things that are not good for us. And a lot of the modern women, it's hard to hear it. A lot of these people, they are not good for us because of the way that they live their lives. That's not good for us. That's not what our Father wants for us. Guys, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, if you don't believe that he died for us, then that's fine. But I'm going to tell you something. There's a great darkness in this world. And when you are suffering, when you are ill, guys, I went through something so profound. I thought I was going to die. I said to God, I want to grow closer to you. I want all the wisdom in the world. And you know what? I said, I'm greedy for wisdom. Many of you say, Angry, how are you so wise? I said to God, at one point I asked God for a lot of money, and he gave it to me. He gave me a ton of money, and I lost all of it because I was not ready for it, because I did not know how to use it properly and how to properly utilize it. And then I said to God, okay, God, I want a ton of wisdom. I want to draw closer to you. And I want a lot of wisdom. I want all the wisdom in the world. I want the wisdom. I basically wanted wisdom like King Solomon. But let me tell you something about wisdom and about drawing closer to God. To draw closer to God, you often have to be pulled away from others. It's crazy. To draw closer to him, you have to be pulled away from others. and to gain knowledge, to gain wisdom. Just for you to understand it, sometimes you have to pass through great amounts of suffering before you can comprehend it and begin learning from it. And I went through a great period of pain and suffering, a horrific point of pain and suffering that no one, I don't think most people could ever survive. I have the wrinkles to prove it. You know, I still look decently young, but it's definitely aged me. I looked like I was in my late 20s probably. All right? I used to look like I was in my late 20s, and within 4 years, I definitely aged about 10 years, and now I look like a pretty good looking 30 something, pretty decent looking 30 something, you know, in my mid to late 30s. But I aged like 10 years from all of that suffering. And I passed through that, but passing through all of that, I learned a lot. I learned about people, I learned about friends, and I was left with no one and nothing, and all I had was God. All I had was God. And I'm telling you, many of you are living in darkness right now, living in extraordinary amounts of darkness. You don't realize that when you have no one and nothing, the only thing that you have are your thoughts and your relationship with Christ. We are born alone and we die alone. Okay? It is a sad state of affairs. It is a sad reality. It could drive anyone insane. It is heartbreaking. It is truly heartbreaking. But as men, we have to persevere because no one is going to rescue us. No one is going to save us. The world does not care about us. In fact, the world around us hates us. They tell us to open up and to express our feelings. The only other person that will ever cry for you or ever care about you is maybe your mother and another man. Only one man can understand another man's tears, and a lot of men could care less about another man's tears. That's just how a lot of men are, because they are so wrapped. The only thing they care about is money and the vertical slide. Money and gaining access to physical intimacy. That's all they care about. They care about nothing else. Although when their lives go to hell, when they hit rock bottom, that's when they want to go find a man, a good man, and cry upon them. The same men that they betrayed. Because you have to understand, most men in this world are simps. They were born simps and they will die simps, and it will never change. Okay? All they care about is money and physical intimacy. They will watch another man lose his life. They will destroy another man's life just for a queef. I've just dropped so many. I know I dropped so many nuggets in this episode, guys. I dropped so many nuggets in this episode, and it's funny because there are people who need to hear it, but are just not ready for it yet. Just not ready for it yet. Life will never. I said it once, and I'll say it again. Life will never be easy for men. Okay? I had a friend who once said this to me. He said, as men, we are born to suffer. It doesn't mean that that our life is to be entirely suffering. More so, it means that we are born to survive great periods of suffering, and not only survive, but to thrive and overcome said suffering. This is something that women cannot do. Most women cannot do this. There are so many women who will tell stories about all the hardships that they went through. And for example, there was a woman that was talking about her story. She ended up getting into something like engineering, and now she's like teaching people and stuff like that in a male-dominated field. And she's an intelligent person, but she claims that she was like working as a waitress and sleeping in a box. And she was a beautiful girl, pretty blonde. And now she's a few years older, so you can even imagine what she looked like in the past. And she said that she was basically, working at a restaurant. She had no money. She was sleeping in a box. Sleeping in a box. So outside, unless she was like using drugs, I don't know. And then she basically said that she got pregnant, and that was like hell on earth for her. But like I guess she found like a social worker or something, and she was able to work her way up and get a place to live. And she got into this, like started training to be like an engineer. and now she's doing really, really well. And it's supposed to be a great testament, but here's the thing, guys: women don't tell the truth. Women often leave out details. For example, how did she get pregnant? She was on the street, so how did she get pregnant? The truth of the matter is that she was likely living with different men, going back and forth and bouncing and living off the simp economy. Did she get pregnant by some homeless dude? You've got to be kidding me. How did she really end up homeless? A woman as pretty as her, a single woman who is beautiful, she can easily find a man to subsidize her living. Easily to take her in. Go and find a Plan C guy. A lot of these women are using substances. A lot of these women are just taking advantage of men, and they bounce from man to man, and then they have short periods of homelessness because the men end up kicking them out. This is how these women live, and then they basically present themselves as victims. And because we listen to them and believe them, because we have been conditioned to believe all women, you believe everything they tell you, and you don't question it, or else you're an evil and bad person. But the thing is, when you do use critical thinking, when you view everything that they say as lies and then try to look for the truth in the lies, you realize the whole damn thing is mostly a lie, and they're just using it to appeal to your sympathy. Guys, things are so bad for men in Western society. Essentially, nothing at this point is going to reverse the things that have happened. Like there's no coming back from it. M2 was the end of it. M2 scorched the effing earth. All right, it scorched the earth. There's no playback. There's no return to the 90s. Okay, there's no forgive and forget after M2. And women are still doing it. Now they're basically using the state, or the state is using them to basically punish men if they're even susceptible to the ideas of toxic masculinity and extreme misogyny. And boys will be reported by their teachers now to the Department of Terrorism, who will come and apprehend them. This is only going to result in more boys dropping out of school and dropping out of society, and more men leaving society. And women are mostly, and women are so happy to do this. In other countries, guys, countries that fell to tyranny, the women in these countries, they know better. A lot of them know better than to destroy their men. They know better than to disrespect their men. They know better than to tear down their men, because that's how you get taken over. That's how you lose your country. I've heard stories that, for example, in some places in Africa, countries in Africa, if a woman rejects a man, she does it gently because she does not want to discourage him. So even if she doesn't want a relationship with him, she wants to ensure that he does not give up on pursuing a relationship, because if he walks away, then they will have no society. Okay? When men walk away, when men begin to give up in unison, that's when society begins to collapse. Look at the Mouse Utopia, guys. What happened when men walked away? You had the Mouse Utopia, which was basically an experiment conducted by John Calhoun, and it was very interesting. The results were very interesting. The Mouse Utopia experiment was wild. Absolutely wild. And when society breaks down, you begin to see some very interesting things that are now paralleling modern day society. Basically, a scientist named John Calhoun took a bunch of mice, put them in this large enclosure, and they had unlimited resources. The only limitation was space, but society began to break down as female mice basically said, we don't need the men anymore. So they began rejecting the men, began rejecting raising their youth, and eventually the men basically stopped competing for the females. In fact, the group emerged known as the beautiful ones, who basically just ate, sleep, pooped, and groomed themselves. And they stopped they stopped communicating with others. They basically just began watching from a distance. And within a short, let me make this very clear. A lot of people believe that this is what I've learned. A lot of people believe that ultimately what occurred was they ran out of space in the Mouse Utopia. That's actually incorrect. They did not run out of space in the Mouse Utopia. They still had plenty of space left. The reality is that they had plenty of space and they had plenty of resources. What occurred is that when all social roles are filled and when the females no longer need the males to provide for them, they become so hyper selective that in the end, almost no man is good enough for them, and even Chad and Tyrone will no longer compete for them. And then basically reproduction ceases, and society collapses. This is a very interesting concept as well. I actually wrote an article over on my Substack, so you can go and check that out, the Angry Guy Clubhouse. It's linked in the description. I basically talked about a concept that was introduced to me by one of my subscribers who said that Thanos basically could have easily done something different and he would have been hailed as a hero of the universe, where instead of wiping out half of the universe that would eventually just repopulate, what he should have done was put a soft limit on the ability of individuals of populations to reach a certain level where they would begin to exhaust the resources in their environment. So basically, nature naturally would step in, and it would basically reduce the number of people that were reproducing. I shouldn't say reproducing, but the number of babies being born, to limit the amount of resources that are being used, right? So theoretically we would never have this problem with resources, right? Yeah, guys, based on the John Calhoun experiment, that would not work, because even when you have unlimited amounts of resources and you still have plenty of space, eventually, if you no longer have to work for anything, if females no longer have to work for anything, and simps are plentiful, the females will eventually just continue to reject the males, and that's it. Guys, think about this carefully. If you have dogs, and there's plenty of resources in the environment, okay? The dogs, just because there are plenty of resources in the environment, do you think the dogs are going to suddenly become violent to humans? Do you think the dogs are suddenly going to turn on humans? No, that's not going to happen. Regardless of all of this, the dogs are still going to want you. They're still going to love you because they are mentally predispositioned to bond with human beings. So they're still going to go to you for comfort. They're still going to go to you for belly rubs. They're still going to eat from your hand. They're still going to go to you for love. They need you. Even if there's unlimited amounts of food in the environment, they're still going to go to you. That's not how it is with women. If all of their needs are being met without men, then they're going to become hyper selective of the men in the environment, and eventually almost no man is good enough. They basically end up competing. Competing for the same 1% of men, and then it becomes so hyper selective that their ideal man no longer exists. That's really what the experiment found. So the Thanos snap, even if Thanos had put a hard, even though he snapped his fingers and he was like, oh, it's an issue with resources. It was not an issue with resources. The issue was with the individual themselves, and more so the female of our species. That there will always be a breakdown based on the desire of women and them never being happy. Women do not actually love us as men. They just like the things that we can do for them and what we have. And when they no longer need us, guys, they don't even like us right now, and they need us. And they tell us that they don't need us, but you can see that they're going ballistic when we leave. But if you have a situation where they absolutely do not need you, then you look at the state of the Roman Empire, basically men have to go into complete hiding. You have men who are essentially living in hiding right now.
Cannibalism, asexuality, and violence, a society that had collapsed. What's going on here? In 1972, John B. Calhoun detailed the specifications of a utopia designed for mice, built in the laboratory. Every aspect of Universe 25, as this particular model was called, was designed to cater for the well-being of its rodent residents, increase their lifespan, and allow them to mate. There was abundant food, water, and nesting material. The universe was cleaned regularly. There were no predators, the temperature stable. Paradise. Or maybe not. 4 pairs of disease-free mice selected from the National Institute of Health's elite breeding colony moved in on day 1. It took months for the rodents to familiarize themselves with their new world. Then they started to reproduce, and the population increased exponentially, doubling every 55 days. Those were the good times in paradise. Past day 315, more than 600 mice now lived in Universe 25, rubbing shoulders on their way up and down the stairwells to eat, drink, and sleep. Population growth slowed. Young ones found themselves born into a world with far more mice than meaningful social roles. Males faced a lot of competitors to defend their territory against. Many found that so stressful they gave up. Normal discourse within the community broke down.
Notice the point that they make when they said social roles. So yes, they were rubbing shoulders with more people, but you have to keep in mind that in a village, for example, in communities like villages, you are sharing small amounts of space regardless. Use logic right here. So in a village, in a town, everyone is still packaged together. Think about old England. People were literally piled together. People were living in small amounts with small space amongst one another in these small confined towns, and with moats and everything else to be protected. So they did not have an unlimited amount of space. If you went out into the wilderness, you could pass away in the wilderness. So that's absolute BS. What has happened here is the social roles were all filled very quickly. Okay? And more so, the women, because they had unlimited access to resources, they ultimately said they did not need the men. And eventually all the male mice began walking away.
With it, the ability of mice to form social bonds. Lone females retreated to isolated nesting boxes on penthouse levels. Other males, a group Calhoun termed the beautiful ones, never sought sex and never fought. They just ate, slept, and groomed, wrapped in narcissistic introspection. Elsewhere, cannibalism, asexuality, and violence became endemic. Mouse society had collapsed.
Notice they call the beautiful ones narcissistic. The females became very aggressive. They didn't mention it. The females became very aggressive towards the males, biting and attacking. They did not want to raise their children anymore, and they were quickly they would basically refuse to raise their children and toss their children out. So as a result, many of the babies never made it to adulthood. They leave that out, but then they go and they blame the males, the beautiful ones, for walking away and saying that they are narcissists. So guys, if you say you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, if you walk away from society and you just basically focus on your core needs as a man and taking care of yourself, not bothering anyone, you're a narcissist. Okay? Walking away from society. Guys, Chad and Tyrone are not narcissists. Men who walk away from society are men who are going their own way and choose not to have relationships or social interactions and just focus on themselves and leave society alone. They're not doing any harm to society. They're not making society a worse place, but because they're not contributing to society, they're automatically deemed, just like they were deemed, and just like the Roman Empire called them single men, the worse than any of the criminals in all of the Roman Empire. These specific mice, the beautiful ones who walked, or who they basically went their own way because they weren't even looking for alternatives. And in fact, when they took these mice They took the beautiful ones and they transplanted them to another universe where the population had not begun to decline yet. These mice still refuse to engage in relationships with females. They still refuse to begin trying to reproduce and compete again. They wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted nothing to do with social interaction. All right? They still retreated to their own ways. And basically they're the ones that are hated the most. The men who walk away, the men who go their own way. The men who go their own way. Guys, think about that very carefully.
On day 560, the population peaked at 2,200 mice. A few mice survived past weaning until day 600, after which there were few pregnancies and no surviving young. As the population had stopped regenerating itself, its path to extinction was clear. The mice had lost the capacity to rebuild their numbers. Many that could still conceive, such as the beautiful ones and their secluded singleton female counterparts, had lost the social ability to do so. On day 920 was the last conception. The last mouse died on May 23, 1973, 4 years and 10 months after colonization. Calhoun later said that the creatures had died 2 deaths. The first was that of their spirit and their society. The second death was that of their physical body. It was not the first time the ethologist had built a world for rodents. Calhoun had been creating utopian environments for rats and mice since the 1940s, with consistent results. Overpopulation leads to explosive violence and hypersexual activity, followed by asexuality, self-destruction, and extinction.
This is not overpopulation, guys. This is, again, they never ran out of space in this. They never ran out of space. It was just that they ran out of social roles. And once all the social roles were filled, they basically, the females became very hyper aggressive, and the men began walking away and saying, hey, we're done with this. We're just going to focus on ourselves. Although in the case of this, these mice did not go, men walking away, like, this is an MWA community, are not men who are actually giving up on women. Some men actually go MGTOW, and so some MWAs are MGTOWs, but not all MWAs are MGTOWs. Some MWAs, choose to go MGTOW, and basically MGTOWs, so men going their own way, are men who are not getting into relationships and basically opting out of relationships in society. Most MWAs are men who are simply men with alternatives. So men walking away are just men with alternatives. They walk away from toxic environments, toxic people, and many go on to become things like passport bros and find a nice lady overseas. Or if they find a good woman in Western society, they'll get into a relationship with her. So MWAs are different, but in the Calhoun experiment, these mice were definitely MGTOWs. They opted out of relationships and they opted out of society. And it was not this again, his papers constantly showed that it was not a matter of overpopulation. It was a matter of a lack of social roles. Once all the social roles were filled, once the females ultimately concluded that they no longer needed the males, that was the end of it. All right? That was 100% the end of it. So the notion of having unlimited amounts of space and unlimited amounts of resources is a joke. Guys, most of the planet, most of the earth is just empty space. Okay? As human beings, we tend to live in cities and small and areas of one another. So most of our planet is empty. You can fit the entire population of the US, to my understanding, in like the city of LA. I know it sounds crazy to you, but yeah, something like in the city of LA. That doesn't mean that everyone would have a ton of space for themselves, but that's crazy. Where you can fit all of everyone, the entire population, in just one spot, just like that. And when you realize that, you realize just how few people there actually are. Our planet can sustain many more people than are actually on it right now. Our planet in reality could sustain probably well over 100 billion people. Well over 100 billion people. Guys, the problem is our ideologies. And the truth is that I do see what Elon is saying right now. We need more planets. We definitely need other planets where notions can grow and where we can separate ourselves from toxic ideologies that foster in our regions. For example, if we had a colonization on Mars and we had millions of people there, then you would have somewhere else to go and you'd have something to challenge what's happening on Earth. We definitely do need to become a space-faring society, but we also need the ability to move around space much faster. We need to be able to travel like this. We have to figure out how to get from one place to another place in a much shorter period of time. This notion of thousands of years to travel from, or tens of thousands or millions of years to travel is crazy. So we definitely have to figure something else out. Definitely have to do something about that,
Cited paper, Population Density and Social Pathology, Calhoun concluded, no matter how sophisticated we are, once the number of individuals capable of filling social roles greatly exceeds the number of such roles, only violence and disruption can follow.
Notice he doesn't. Notice, guys, this is an issue. This is an issue not with overpopulation. This isn't because in terms of there's not enough resources. Guys, in this experiment, they had unlimited amounts of resources. They never ran out of food. They had, and the Utopia was constantly cleaned. Okay, so they did not run out of food. They ran out of social roles, and as a result, that is why this Utopia declined. Notice, and with Thanos was like, oh, there's just not enough resources for everyone. But in the case of the Mouse Utopia, they had unlimited amounts of resources. They had unlimited amounts of resources. The only limitation was space. And they did not run out of space. They ran out of social roles. And as a result, that's what ultimately led to population decline.
To a phenomenon he called behavioral sync. Behavioral sync is our desire to be in the presence of others, to be conditioned to seek to be near others, and to be drawn to the crowd, in spite of the conflicts that this can generate. Drawing from Calhoun's popular research, social scientists started to call for restrictions on reproduction as the only possible response to the world's rising population. Calhoun himself was more optimistic about our future. He argued, as our physical space declines, we are forced to extend a conceptual space, our network of ideas and technologies. Later in his career, he turned to possible solutions and began to build creative universes that minimize the ill effects of overcrowding. What are your thoughts? Is overcrowding a danger for mankind, or does it only affect rodents? And if so, what can save the human psyche? Avoiding eye contact in crowded places is one strategy, but is that enough?
Guys, think about this very carefully. When the social roles today have gotten filled as women began competing directly with men. When women do not compete directly with men, then you don't have these issues. Okay? That's one of the big things to consider. Guys, we are in a situation right now where, women are competing. And as a result of that, they will always want more. That's what happened in the experiment. Women, basically the female mice, they had everything that they needed. All right. So they would only pick from the top men, from the top 1%. Here's a better experiment for you guys. What if you were to take those, before the society began to collapse, what if you gradually began to remove mice, male mice only, from that society and place them in their own society? And then what would happen without the females? My guess is that you would end up with a society that was extremely productive. Extremely productive if you separated the males from the females and basically just allow the men to operate amongst themselves. By the way, guys, ultimately, we're going to see a lot of this happening in our own society. We're seeing it already happening with significant population decline around us. Okay? And men are walking away, and a lot of women are going to find themselves in poverty, destitution, significant hardship because they're not going to be able to live off that simp economy. And that's ultimately where this is going to lead. And that's why these women are melting down. Guys, if you're enjoying the content, by the way, come on, guys. Go and join the Angry Guy Clubhouse. It's such a nice community. You can dive into that. And, you know, we have podcasts over there, Gen X Stories. You also get a free copy of our digital nomad blueprint. You know, it'll help you to escape the rat race, help you to build for your future. We talk over there. You can leave comments. You can reach out to me. It's a great time, guys. It's a great time. What do you guys think regarding all of this? Women are melting down over men going their own way. Let me know your thoughts. We'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.